Welcome to another episode of the Hook Term podcast. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the new Subaru Outback and then exactly what it's going to mean for its Australian launch, as well as what's happening in Europe as well with the future of the Outback. Then we'll talk about the Fiat 500 EV crazy price drop. Um, and as well as the effect of depreciation on some EVs and what used EV we would all buy. And then finally, we'll talk about Porsche's business's future. So they've said that their current kind of business plan isn't working for now. So we'll talk about what they could probably do in the future and exactly what is going to come next. So yeah, joining me again, as always, is Sambib and Vivek. How you guys doing today?
Yeah, busy weekend. Went to see some whales down in Phillip Island yesterday with a few friends, so that was fun. Not great weather, but the company was good. And yeah, today just slightly more chill day, but plenty of stuff to do with uni and some other things. So yeah, good weekend overall.
Yep, same. You're right. Just had yeah, similarly very chill weekend. Watched the new Fantastic Four movie today, which was fun. Been actually watching a few movies because last week I watched Jurassic World as well. But other than that, yeah, have been mostly at home.
Nice.
How about you, Dash?
Uh, I was in Sydney the whole week, which is good. So yeah, just getting back to usual day to day here, in Melbourne. So yeah. All right, cool. Let's jump into it. So Subaru Outback, some of the key kind of changes for the new generation. So it's a significant update. Looks probably more similar to an SUV than ever, which is as expected with the current trends of consumers going more towards SUVs rather than the wagon type format. It's a lot cleaner inside as well, so they've switched up the interior, going from a portrait layout to an interior which has got a screen that's more horizontally layout. It's a brand new infotainment system for Subaru as well, and hopefully a lot better than their previous generation. There's probably rumors of a hybrid powertrain coming, which I think Aussies would definitely get behind given the likes of the RAV4 and other models in similar categories getting a similar powertrain. And there's a couple of other updates as well, such as Subaru's eyesight system getting upgraded too. So yeah, we'll see kind of what pricing looks like when it's announced later in the year. But so far, it looks like a big update for the car. Definitely a very important model for Subaru and has been for years. But yeah, what do you guys think about the new generation?
Sandeep?
So the Outback was an interesting car because it was almost like a hybrid of an SUV and a wagon. Certainly the previous generation was that kind of hybrid where yes, it had the similarly styling of most wagons with obviously much greater ground clearance, obviously more dedicated tires for off-roading, plus Subaru's all-wheel drive system. This new Outback and obviously for the previous generation, the Forester was meant to be the full SUV. Now, with this new generation Outback, it seems like a bit more that the Outback is sort of encroaching on that SUV sort of territory. It's a shape. I think the previous generation Outback is a very clean looking car, particularly from the rear. This new car, so the front probably, while it's reflecting a new design language, I feel doesn't necessarily look as clean as the previous gen um, uh, Subaru Outback. It's interesting as well with the rear. The rear I thought looked pretty good. It actually, the new generation, the rear, it kind of reminds me of the Pathfinder in a way when I looked at it, the rear of the Nissan Pathfinder, which I guess if you're going to think, it's similarly an off-road sort of style vehicle. So it makes sense to that extent. Interior, though, obviously is a huge upgrade because, Subaru's, well, current, if previous gen, uh, infotainment was seen as a bit outdated. Yes, a reasonably large screen in most of the models, but usually not particularly fast processing power and not that modern compared to other brands, whereas now it's pretty clear from the interior of the new Outback that it's fully switched to the sort of modern day infotainment that customers expect now.
I think that will
Um,
be the biggest upgrade for sure. The
Agreed.
infotainment.
Yep.
I was in a Forester a couple of months ago. I think at one of the I think it was the motor show in Melbourne, and I was playing around with some of the other models around it. So some of the Chinese models, the like the Tesla. You go into a Forester, and suddenly it's like two generations old. It feels like almost every response is almost like an Android phone from 2010.
Mm,
So.
Agreed. Yep.
To be honest, I don't know how Subaru owners have been keeping up with or getting used to that kind of infotainment. Maybe they don't care. Maybe the demographic is the most tech savvy anyway. But for the Subaru loyalists, I think this will be a much needed upgrade.
Agreed.
I actually think this car, and I hope we get it in Australia because Subaru has said that we will, but it actually looks really good in the not really good actually. That's overstating it, but I think it looks better in the wilderness trim, which is the even more off-road ready sort of
Oh,
trim version compared to the standard one. Like
I
I think
was,
Audacious.
I was actually gonna say if you had a photo of that one looks terrible. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on why you think is that the one with the weird like cladding at the front that almost
Yeah, it's
like
the one
it's
with
a
yeah.
bad version of the Raptor.
Yeah, and it has like the what seems to be like almost like a bull bar at the front, and like they've replaced with the wilderness model, they've replaced the Subaru badge with like the Subaru letters, like with like Subaru in big font. I think it's almost like I feel like Subaru were like, okay, we're gonna take the Outback, and historically, like as Sambit was saying, the Outback has been like a Liberty or in the US a legacy wagon that's like lifted a little bit and they put in like off-road tires, a little bit higher ground clearance. But now I think this model they've tried to make it more of a like a proper SUV, and I think it's classified now as a large SUV. So it's like one size above the Forester. But like I feel like with the standard new Outback, they've kind of said that, okay, we're going to go off-road, but we're going to pull it back a little bit because we want to give space to the wilderness model. And with the wilderness model, they've gone like, okay, we're going to go full tilt here with the with all of the boxiness, with all of the plastic, square wheel arch cladding, with the full front bumper treatment, with the vertical, like almost like a bull bar, and then even at the with the roof racks and the rear styling, we're gonna go with the black cladding and the squared off, reversing lights and like I mean this
There's
is
no way you could think this looks good. Come
I
on.
mean I don't know like
Just
look
black, it's just black at the back and then all black at the front. It like
yeah.
removed all the sense of style from the car.
I feel like I mean, like, look, this is like I will agree with you that this is an ugly car. Like, this is not a handsome vehicle. But like, with the wilderness version, they've gone all out, and like, I respect them for going all out with
To make
all
the
of the
ugliest car in the
craziness.
world? Yes.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
the standard Outback, they've like, okay, yeah, we'll pull it back a little bit, and we'll go, we'll have the light bar at the back, like almost every other SUV is doing, and we'll have our take on that and whatnot with the wilderness model. It's a little bit more unique. It's more crazy, and if you want to be a little bit crazy with this car, you may as well just go full crazy. Like, I mean, look at the styling. It's like it's nothing to like. I think it'll probably scare young children to be honest. Like with the front grille, but like.
Ironically, given this car is probably going to be a family car for
Yeah, exactly.
people as well.
Um, I'm not like I think the powertrains. I think the hybrid. It'll be good that they come with a hybrid because the standard powertrains. I mean, they still have the carryover. What is it? The 2.5 liter naturally aspirated boxer horizontally opposed boxer, which is I think underpowered now for this, given how big this car has grown. It's good that they've kept the turbo. I think that's probably like I think that should really be the default powertrain for this car. I mean, it will probably be a fuel guzzler, but at least it's reasonably powerful. But I think the hybrid,
The hybrid's not announced, is it? It's
no, that's true.
speculated. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think the other thing to note with this car is that even for the American market, they're building it in Japan. So Japan is the only place of manufacture. And for Australian customers, what that means is that it should come sooner rather than later because it's this, same factory and they can being Japan is like a right-hand drive country as well. It probably means that there'll be less of a delay between American sales and Australian sales, so that's probably a good sign. But yeah, look, the styling is unique, and Subaru is sort of playing really hard on their off-road credentials with this car, and probably the broader Subaru lineup as well with their wilderness variants. So
yeah, definitely. I think there's an interesting point here as well that the Outback, as we know it, is actually not going to be coming to Europe because of emissions regulations. So it's very likely that it's going to be coming instead as an e-Outback, which is actually the Subaru Trail Seeker in the States. So not uh, not the same vehicle at all, completely different vehicle that's actually more similar and more related to the Solterra, I believe, and
mm,
the Toyota BZ. So basically a longer version of both. I think Toyota has a BZ Woodlands version, which might be coming to Australia as the BZ Touring, I believe. So yeah, this car I actually think looks more like an Outback than the new Outback and probably a little bit more faithful to it. But
mm,
of course, it's a full EV powertrain there. But yeah, it's actually the wagon shape, which a lot of people love and adore the Outback for. So yeah, I'm not sure if people are necessarily going to take up the new Outback in the same numbers as they did before, if they were still looking for that wagon shape. But if they're still, kind of loyalists to the brand, then maybe the Trail Seeker might be a better option for some.
yeah. I think I like the styling of the E-Outback or the Trail Seeker as it's known in the US as well. I agree with you that it's sort of more of a natural evolution of the outgoing Outback. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like I think Toyota with their up like this is I mean this car, yeah, it's branded as a Subaru and they're trying to promote its off-road credentials, but it's fundamentally like a Toyota, like it's been engineered by Toyota, uses the Toyota sort of eTNGA platform or development of that. And with the latest BZ4X, they've improved the range significantly. Like before, the original model was like quite a bit below competitors, and when looking at pure range and so on. The new model, they've sort of improved the range. It's now more of a par, so that's good. Might make it a more attractive proposition. And then this e-Outback slash Trail Seeker builds on that. So yeah, I think the styling is much more smoother, much more aerodynamic, much much more of a wagon than the combustion engined Outback. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if like customers who were previously the target market for the Outback, like people who like towing and going off road, will they go with an EV in the first place? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not sure if these stats are right. I hope they are. I think they're from it, ChatGPT. But 4.3 to 4.4 seconds, 0 to 100
Oh,
for
that's
the
very quick.
e-Outback is
Yeah, seems a
insane.
bit too quick. Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
that's almost like getting into sports car territory.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that right?
Surely.
Definitely.
That's definitely not right. Definitely right.
I can't actually. I want to. I can't.
We got to
I
double
can't.
check that.
Yeah, I can't believe that's right.
We got to check this in real time because if that's the
Yeah,
case, there's no way I'm getting a regular Outback.
yeah,
I want the supercar Outback,
yeah.
the e-Outback.
Surely,
But yeah, that would be crazy if that's
surely,
true.
surely. See, I'm reading the
They
It
really are.
logically would make sense because there are lots of
Mm.
now hybrids and PHEVs, even from Chinese brands, which are offering sub 5 second 0 to 100,
Yeah.
sometimes or even on their SUVs.
This is
Maybe not.
almost, yeah, this is almost sub four, like four.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. This is really
the
quick,
BZ and
but
Solterra aren't anywhere near that quick, I think.
mm,
They're
Um,
around 6 to 7 seconds
right.
from what I remember.
mm.
Uh, Using a dual motor electric powertrain with up to 280 kilowatts of power, 0 to 60, so 97 kilometers an hour of just 4.4 seconds. Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Okay, so yeah,
That is
yeah,
Wow.
insane.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
that is crazy. But
Okay.
in
Cool.
the
Yeah.
age of EV motors or even partial EV motors, it makes sense that it's no longer that impressive for even a regular car to have under a sub 5 seconds 0 to 100 time. It's just the nature of EVs and electric motors means that it's mostly achievable for most cars.
It's actually um apparently the quickest production Subaru ever made. So it's quicker than like the WRX STI,
Oh, wow.
which is insane for such a huge car wearing like off-road sort of all-terrain tires. That's crazy.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The range is around 420 kilometers. So it's not the
Yeah.
um got the most range out of any car kind of in its category, but it's still not bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really looks like they positioned that as almost a performance car in
Yeah.
ways rather than as probably what it traditionally an Outback was.
I mean, b both of you guys know that at one point I owned a BMW M240i. This is just in terms of pure acceleration. This is quicker than that, like, which is insane. Like
Yeah,
this is yeah next level. Just in terms of I'm sure it can't handle probably can't handle very well around the corners given its size and off-road focus. But from a on a straight line, that's quick, very quick. So yeah.
funny. Cool.
Mhm.
Next story here is a huge price drop for the Fiat 500e in Australia. So the driveway price has now been reduced down to 38,990, down from its original 52,500. So that is a saving of over $13,000, which definitely will not help resale value for that car. So I think it's pretty kind of obvious why there's been a price crash. There's been a broader slowdown with EV demand and the likes of Fiat, which aren't necessarily doing the best at the moment, really have to fight for survival. So I think with a smaller car like this, with the threat again of the Chinese brands, this is probably a very necessary move and one that may not have actually happened if the competition didn't force it. But it's still quite a significant reduction. And yeah, there's really been no other changes to the car. It's still got a pretty tiny by comparison to some other vehicles, 42 kilowatt hour battery. Range is around 300 kilometers on the WLTP cycle. Um, but I think, yeah, now with a driveway price of under 40K, it's a little bit more appealing to urban buyers and potentially a genuine alternative to some other compact EVs. But yeah, what do you guys think about the price drop, and would you now be interested in the 500e?
I think that yes, obviously the original price of the 500 he made meant that well, almost no one was a customer, and it's reflected in the sales data basically. But even with this price drop, yes, it's a significant price drop, but the reality is that there's been even more competition in this sector than when the 500e launched, and so. I mean, 38,990, nearly 40K for a car. There are lots of other better options. You could spend a tiny bit more and get an SUV from a Chinese brand. Yes, I understand that this car obviously is meant to have much more niche appeal than a generic SUV or something from another car. But even if you wanted to buy it because it's European, has some funky styling, the reality is, and also don't necessarily care about its practicality, the reality is you'd have to be in an unbelievably specific group to also be able to tolerate the relatively small range because this would obviously be a secondary car for most people given the small range and the nature of the size of the car. It's not a practical car, but the amount of people who would have $40,000 to spend on a second car, that has a realistic driving range of about 220 to 250 kilometers. And also expect getting all other compromises with this car because it is fundamentally an unchanged car from 2, 3 years ago. Whereas EVs are moving so rapidly, cars with technology from 2, 3 years ago are already outdated, especially in the EV space. Given that this car wasn't cutting edge anyways, and also the interior of this car doesn't quite match the funky looks exterior wise. So there might be a few more sales based on this price cut. But the reality is that if you weren't already considering getting this car previously, not too many people actually consider it now. On Also to advertise this kind of to actually be able to sell a car and this price drop, you need to advertise it. I don't know how many people are going to even know that this car has had this sort of price drop.
I feel
But
like
it's
the
at
previous gen 500
mm,
didn't do too badly, in Australia. So
yeah, correct.
I think
Even
there
So
might still be some kind of diehards that might now be more interested in the vehicle that they weren't before if they still kind
also,
of
apparently, a lot of these is actually stock from 2023 that they still haven't
yeah.
been able to sell. So this isn't like 2025 500E. This is stuff that has been sort of sitting in their showrooms for like 1.5 to 2 years that they can't move. They're hoping that this major price cut will get someone. But the reality is, as I said earlier, I don't necessarily think it's going to really push too many people because, yeah, you're still not getting a brand new. Well, it's brand new in the sense no one's driven it, but it's
the
not brand new
old plate.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think like Adash, to your point about the old 500, it did sell really well, but it was also very like at some points in its life cycle, it was also very cheap. Like I believe at one point it was you could get one for under $20,000 and so on. It was a lot cheaper, and obviously didn't have any range anxiety issues, as impractical as it was. But I think fundamentally, like Australians aren't really buying these sorts of city cars. Like we don't really have those like geographically like we don't really have those like tiny city streets where like in Europe or like where it would make sense to have this sort of car.
You want to
Maybe
take this through Melbourne's laneways?
yeah, well, maybe if that's the only place you're driving, it makes sense. But maybe if you only drive around Lygon Street or in Carlton or Collingwood, it makes sense to have this car. But like otherwise, I just think it's too small and not practical enough, in general, and then even more so at this price point. The original pricing, 50 or 52 before on-road costs. So on the road, it would be easily like 55, 56, if not more. That's almost like entry level Tesla Model 3 territory. You could get the BYD Seal for that price, which are like basically two or three classes up, like better in well, basically every way from a performance perspective, safety, technology, like other specifications, range, so on. And sure, maybe they don't have the cachet that the Fiat does. But now I feel sorry for anybody who bought the car in 2023. Like you've lost like tens of thousands of dollars, in addition to the depreciation that the car already had. So,
Yeah.
the value of the car for those people who bought it in like 2 years ago, if they wanted to sell it, now you can get one for under 40 grand new. Like, used ones you probably wouldn't expect much from 32 or even $30,000. So maybe it's a good used car buy in the future, but yeah, it's still too small. Too underpowered, not enough range. Like as Sandra was saying, 200. Maybe if you just doing it for the inner city commute as a secondary car, it makes sense. But otherwise, yeah, it's not. You can't really have it as a main car for most people.
Yeah. I feel bad for all six of the people that bought it previously.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of depreciation, so if it's not a fair 500, what cars would you guys go for if you're looking for a depreciated EV? So I think we had a little bit of a discussion on this offline. So I think I'd go with either the Porsche Taycan or the Audi e-tron GT. Originally, I think Sammy wanted to go with the Taycan, so I picked the GT. But I wouldn't be unhappy with either of these. So you're spending 200, 300K on these cars, brand new. Some of them extremely well spec'd as well. And
Mm.
for that, you're getting one of the kind of most capable driving EVs in the world. You're getting two cars that have brand cachet, that look great as well, decently practical, being four-door sedans as well. And you can get them for around 110 to 120K now, which I think is an absolute bargain. So I think those two would be my pick. Even before we were going to discuss this topic, I was just curious to see how much a Taycan or e-tron GT would cost actually a couple of days ago. So I was surprised. I was speaking to a mate who was saying you could get one for around this price, and I thought for sure you'd have to spend at least 150K used for one of these. But I think, yeah, given that these cars, especially the Taycan, was so highly rated when it first was released and really was the torchbearer for EVs, and now you can get them for not much more than let's say a brand new BMW i4 is, I think, pretty incredible value. So, what are your two picks?
Sanviv?
So what so when I was thinking about this question, I was basically thinking, okay, what's a brand even with the petrol cars that has quite high levels of depreciation despite actually selling reasonably good cars? And then let's look at their EV models to see even more depreciation. So Genesis is one of those brands where, yes, there are a fair amount of people who buy it, especially the GV70, given its striking styling. But the reality is on the pre-owned market, it's a great buy because the prices Genesis do not hold in the same way that Mercedes, BMW, Audi do. So then I was like, okay, Genesis petrol cars, they depreciate quickly. Let's have a look at their EVs. And it turns out that you can get 2022, 2023 Genesis GV60 EV, which still looks extremely modern, for about 70K. Now, given that brand new, these cars are, close to 115K, I would say that's a great buy because you're getting basically well, I mean, it's not a SUV in the traditional sense, but still a reasonably practical car compared to something like a Taycan. And you're getting Genesis level interior quality, reasonably quirky and pretty good styling. Some still futuristic features like their electrical digital mirrors. Um, for a pretty great price. The range also isn't too bad either. So you're certainly reasonable enough for most people's day-to-day driving. There's that so so basically in this sort of thing price range you don't have to take in the hit of the depreciation while still getting a really nice car in something like the Genesis GV60. It's not just the GV60. Even if you look at some of their other EVs that are a couple of years old, you can get a Genesis GV80, the EV version, for about 75K, looking at car sales. So the GV80, sorry, not the GV, just the G80, the sedan. There's one that's Genesis certified used, so you've also got that for about 78K. Now the G80 is like, effectively competitor to the 5 Series, etc. So for under 80K, you're getting a lot of cars. So in
Wonder what you
general, I
can
think
get
the
what can you get the GV70 electrified for? Because I think that might be my pick in the
the
Genesis.
GV70, I'm seeing a 2022 GV70 EV for 74,000.
Wow. Okay.
That's,
Yeah.
That
yeah.
is pretty cool. I think I
Yeah,
might
yeah.
go for that one actually if I was
Mm.
interested in that category.
I,
Yeah,
I,
it's a really good buy because, like I said, the petrol ones depreciate. It seems like the EV ones depreciate even more. So, and Genesis interiors, and you get,
yeah.
I mean, EVs mostly are reliable, but yes, you get that thing of knowing that fundamentally they're based on Hyundai's electric
Yeah.
technology that you already see in cars in the Ioniq range. So
Yeah.
you get a bit of extra luxury compared to a Hyundai car, but still with the same level of confidence in the car that you also get when you buy Ioniq. So yeah, but the Genesis GV60, GV70 would be my pick.
I really wanted to roast this car, but I actually quite like the pick actually. So
Yeah.
unfortunately I might have to leave it for the next choice. But
Well, I'm going to talk about your options, which I will say, I think they're both really good choices, to be honest. Like, firstly, the Taycan. Yeah, I mean, I still remember looking at the when the Mission E concept came out. It looked absolutely incredible, and the Taycan to Porsche's credit, they kept very closely to that concept. And the fact that you can get one, as Adash was saying, for like 115,000 and not like the kilometers aren't that high. Like, yes, it is. You're looking at sort of like the early sort of 2020, 2021 models, and but still the kilometers are maybe like still 50,000. There's one, 116,990. That is, it is the base model, granted, but it's only done 40,000 kilometers, which is not that much. There's another Taycan 4S, which is like a fairly good spec, only done sort of under 70,000 kilometers, which is still not bad, but I think it's a pretty solid choice. Like, you could get like a for the 100K mark, you get like the i4, or you can get, which is, yeah, it's a nice car and it's brand new, but it's not going to turn heads like the Taycan. Like the Taycan, it looks incredible, like to be honest. And so I think it's, more than 50% depreciation over less than sort of 4 years is quite a huge depreciation hit. So yes, solid buy. Same with the Genesis. I think Genesis comparatively has better interior quality than the equivalent Mercedes, BMW, or Audi when you're looking at their models at the same price range. And I think that extends to the GV60. Like, I think it's a good choice as well. And all of those facts with the depreciation, I agree with. Now, the car I'm gonna go with is not a logical choice. It doesn't have the same rational decision making justifications that either Dash or Sambit have said, but I'm going to go with the BMW i3 purely because I love the engineering behind it, and I think it's such a cool car. I still think it's the dream ideal urban city car. Like, if you gave like a bunch of like smart, talented engineers a blank sheet of paper and told them that, okay, you don't have to worry about cost of production, just create something that's electric, sustainable, and is ideal for use in urban environments in the city, they would come up with something that's not far from the BMW i3. Like, just from an innovations perspective, like this was BMW's first dedicated EV, built on a dedicated EV platform, carbon fiber construction, those suicide doors. It looks like it came out in what was it, 2013, or even before 2012,
I think around then, yeah.
yeah, it's come out. It's been around for more than 10 years now, and it still looks like bang up to date. It still looks futuristic. Like, it's if Star Trek had a car, it would be similar to the i3. And I just love the interior. Like, they really have that very Scandinavian feel, like with the eucalyptus wood trim. They had the freestanding floating displays with the instrument cluster, incredible visibility as well, because they had the that very big glass house. And yeah, it's only a four-seater, granted, but it is rear-wheel drive, as BMW should be, which is very cool. Incredible turning circle, so ideal city companion. I still think it turns heads like nothing else for a car of its size. And you can get, and coincidentally, it actually hasn't, and unfortunately, it actually hasn't depreciated as much as I would like it to. So the model that I,
It defeats the point of this exercise that
yes, it probably does, but I am going for the emotional perspective, because I think you need to have. Sometimes you want to go with your heart, as every Alfa Romeo buyer would say.
so you pick the overpriced failed science experiment instead of the rational car that's actually lost value and is actually a good buy.
To be fair, it has lost value, just not as much as I would like it to. So the example that I've put in the slides, it's 39,900, which is the latest sort of i3S, so the slightly sporty version with the largest battery. So this was the 120 ampere hour, which I believe translates to, I think, 42 kilowatt hour battery, which is not for today's day and age, not very big. We might get maybe optimistically around 300 kilometers of range. Realistic range is probably under 300 kilometers. So the range isn't very good, to be honest. And this car new would have probably been around, was it 75,000. So I mean, it's depreciated less than 50% over 5 years, which is not as much as you would hope for. Like, I would hope maybe it's because Australia, they didn't sell that many anyway, but I don't see how that directly correlates to depreciation or causes or um, creates whether creates a need for depreciation or whether it or how it affects depreciation. But this car ideally should be around the 30K mark or under 30K. I think then it would be a fantastic buy. I would say it's probably about at least $5,000 too expensive. But yes, it is a heart over head decision, but I just love the engineering behind it. I think BMW took a huge gamble with this car, and the gamble did not pay off. But I like the fact that they took the gamble anyway, so that's my choice.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Speaking of failed business decisions, we'll
Mhm.
move on to Porsche, who have mentioned that their model has basically ended or reached its end of life. So our business model no longer works is the headline. So their business model, which Porsche CEO Oliver Bloom has mentioned in an internal memo, has served them well for many decades, but no longer works in its current form. So this has basically been a response to declining EV demand, rising tariffs, and economic headwinds. So global sales have slipped down to 3% in 2024, down 3% in 2024, and a further 6% in H1 2025. Actually, in the States, they haven't been doing too badly, but
Mm.
they've really been seeing a hit in China with a direct reduction in sales of 28% in H1. I believe that's year on year, and then massive 23% in its home of Germany as well. Even Australia has seen a drop of 12.8%. So unfortunately, the my beloved Taycan has probably partly responsible for this. So it's suffered notable losses, 49% sales drop in 2024 and a further decline in early 2025. And we're starting to see a shift in the plan to basically go full EV with the likes of the Macan and potentially the Cayenne as well. So I believe they're now exploring bringing back the at least some combustion engine form of the Macan, potentially a hybrid or in full combustion. Given that the current generation, recently revealed generation, is EV only. And unfortunately, they're planning to cut 1,900 jobs by 2029 as well as a result of these drop in sales and basically their struggles with their current business model. So, yeah, unfortunate news. They really looked like they were spearheading the transition to
Mm.
mostly EV only, apart from its icon vehicles like the 911. But unfortunately, that bet doesn't seem to have paid off with the market shifting more back towards hybrid and combustion. And yeah, we really don't know what's going to be happening to the next generation Boxster and Cayman, which were meant to be EV only as well. By all reports, they've been delayed too. So looks like troubling times ahead from Porsche. It was pretty much smooth sailing for the last kind of decade or so with the Macan and Cayenne really bolstering its sales and its 911 really just going from strength to strength year on year. But yeah, I think for an iconic brand that a lot of us love and it's is highly revered, we really don't want them to be struggling in this way. So hopefully they can turn around. What do you guys take on this?
Yeah, I think Porsche probably jumped the gun a little bit with going onto the EV bandwagon, and it's not just Porsche, like other brands. Probably Volvo is another, I mean, not a performance or brand, but is another example of sort of thinking that the world and the market would transition to electric vehicles sooner than sooner than what has actually occurred. So that's probably the biggest reason for this statement about our business model no longer working. And yeah, I think the Macan, like, I think there's going to be a hybrid version. That's going to happen sooner rather than later. Like they went, I think initially when they developed it, it's going to be all EV. It's going to be like the Taycan is like they're spearheading their EV revolution, and the Macan was sort of going to be the volume seller with their EV. That clearly hasn't happened. So now they're sort of pedaling back. It's not surprising, I guess, because Porsche, like, what do they have? Their models, they have, they're all sort of playing in the high-end luxury market as they should. I guess that sort of segment is very sensitive to changes in sort of EV demand in particular, like EV performance cars in general just haven't been doing well. People really want emotion. Yes, they care about performance and so on, but it's not just about straight line performance. It's fundamentally at that sort of, supercar and sports car end of the market. It's about the actual driving experience, and that driving experience includes noise, the thrill of shifting gears, all of those sorts of like emotional experiences, which customers, whether rightly or wrongly, they think that's more associated with combustion and hybrid engine models. So, yeah, the Macan you can have put in whatever sort of they have the electric Macan, and yeah, straight line performance is incredible with their turbo versions. The handling, I'm sure, is incredible, but the actual emotion is probably not there compared to the outgoing combustion engine model. So I think it's sort of symptomatic of uh, customers not sort of directly associating EVs with what they expect in a performance vehicle, in the performance vehicle segment. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, so this sort of reflects what I've mentioned and what Vivek was just saying is that people who are interested in sort of sports cars of this nature are not necessarily going to be interested in electric sports cars because the reality is, in my opinion, electric cars work best just as your normal commuter cars where you're going to
Mm.
work and back and just for your general duties, where basically you've got enough range to cover all of that, you charge it at home, then go out again. The reality is now, yes, while Porsche is still a Porsche, lots of other brands, thanks to EVs, have now caught up in the performance aspects that Porsche used to brag about. Yes, probably doesn't handle it the same, etc. But certainly in many of the other stats that you can actually put as numbers, Porsche and other supercar brands are actually no longer that unique. And in China, especially, the reality is that they've got so many options, even in the supercar territories, because a lot of their domestic brands are,
BYD,
producing their,
Yang
yeah,
Wang.
BYD, the Yang Wang, etc. There's multiple other Chinese EVs which are producing similar performance to the Porsche for a significantly less amount of money. So this idea that of people wanting to spend a lot of money or to buy an electric supercar, I think Porsche is finding that that market is actually not that big because, as Vivek was saying, lots of people want to buy sports cars. They don't just buy it for the straight line performance; they buy it for the feeling. And unfortunately, while cars like the Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6, then are trying to recreate some of the feeling effectively of a combustion car, even though it's an EV with things, the fun things that the Ioniq 5N does and the Ioniq 6N will do, it's still not quite the same. So yes, EVs are certainly going to be the future for commuter cars, but I actually think for sports cars, not full petrol, that would obviously be too much, but I think hybrid
Mm.
will most likely be the future for supercars rather than going full EV, where you still have the advantage of the electric motors giving you that power, but you don't lose the engagement from the petrol engine as well.
Do you think people are buying Macans, or at least the entry-level Macans and Cayennes, for the drive engagement, or perhaps the fact that maybe it has a combustion engine? Like,
I
do you
I
think there's a risk still of them going full EV with those types of cars?
I think the Macan, especially, first, one of the main reasons the Macan was initially successful was because, relatively speaking, for a Porsche, it was affordable. I think when it launched, it was about 80 something K for the
Mm.
base. Yes, we know that a Porsche base means that you have to option everything, even if you want to get to the feature list of a regular brand car. But still, it was, relatively speaking, an affordable way to get a Porsche in your driveway. Now, the new Macan, significantly higher price, and then relatively speaking, comes with a much bigger compromise of being EV only, where especially in countries like Australia, it's just not as practical as buying a car with the petrol engine. So I think both of those two things combined has definitely meant the Macan won't be as mainstream as the previous petrol Macan was. It's just like the price, the fact it's electric only. I also don't think the design is quite as strong, but I think the first two points especially will mean that it just won't be as successful in mainstream. However, it will be good buys pre-owned because obviously brand new, they're about 120, 130 now.
Mm.
I reckon that they, unlike a petrol Porsche, I don't think will hold its value that well. So in a couple of years, they could be a pretty great buy.
Yeah, perhaps if we do the last segment again in a few,
Yeah.
maybe the Macan will be on that list instead.
Yeah.
I think to like Sandvib's point, like even if you look at the fact that they're coming out or they've delayed this, the electric replacements to the Boxster and the Cayman. Like right now, you can get the MG Cyberster, which is what 115 grand maybe or something.
Yeah,
Just
roughly. Yeah.
just
Yeah. I
like
think they also dropped in price or something, but
yeah. I mean, like, e- even if you assume that, yeah, it's a Porsche, so the electric Boxster and the Cayman, they say it's going to be 150 grand, like starting price. That's still like significantly more expensive for a car that is probably not going to be that much faster in a straight line. Like, sure, maybe the handling will be, better, but like or like the curb appeal. I mean, if you ignore the fact that it's an MG and yes, it's a, quote unquote Chinese car, like the MG has those cool scissor doors, it has all the tech, it has, all of the straight line performance, it's, handles like well enough. Like it has to be like it's sort of like removes one of the reasons why you would get an electric sort of Boxster or a Cayman. Like you'd pay significantly more for a car that is like when you can get maybe 85% of the experience for significantly less with the convertible MG Cyberster. And even though I don't think the Cyberster, like, not that MG was expecting it to do very well, like I don't think it's haven't seen one on the road, and I think it's on sale now. But regardless, I think the point is just goes to the point that at this end of the market, you need to be more than having all the tech and being fast in a straight line and handling. It's all about the emotion, and yeah, and that's only something that maybe a hybrid powertrain is better at delivering. So
Yeah. Hopefully, we see a few more emotional Porsches to come down the line, and hopefully, we see a change of fortunes too.
yeah.
Cool. All right, that wraps it up for another episode of the Hook Turn podcast. Make sure you rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe on YouTube. See you next week.